All right, welcome to Two Fat Dads, the special episode that we were talking about. The one that Bobby was really excited to be in, and then now she's ghosted us.
Oh, classic Bobby.
Sick Bobby, she ghosted us. Is my face too bright now? I think it's too bright.
I think you're fine.
Okay. Oh, thank you. You're not too bad yourself, Steve.
Yeah.
Anyways, we do have a special episode. This is someone who is really interesting, but is kind of a stranger to both Steve and I a little bit. Her name is Verily Jones. Welcome.
Hi, I'm Verily.
She followed the rules. She didn't
Very
talk
good.
until she was introduced.
Good job.
Yes.
Now, I was
This is
excited
really
because this is the first person that had to get clearance before they could come on the show.
That is
Yes,
true.
it did. It did.
HR
And
clearance.
It took a while too. I was like, it's just a podcast.
It's a no.
100
It's a
people watch
nothing.
it.
No one watches it podcast.
So if we could just jump into that, Verily, because you tell us what you do and then what were the concerns that HR might have had?
So I'm an assistant district attorney here in New Mexico. I live in New Mexico. And anything to do with media has to be cleared. Normally, any media appearance either has to be the district attorney, a deputy, or you have to get special permission from the district attorney to be in anything media.
Well, you
Okay.
have special permission from Steve today.
Yes, you do.
And that's the most special permission of all.
Well, I am really excited to, and I'm sorry, Tony, I didn't mean to cut you off, but I'm excited to get a little bit into her story
Yes.
and then talk about, obviously within what she's allowed to, talk a little bit about her job and some of the things she deals with. So I think we should just get started.
Yeah. First, I was just going to ask, do you want to be called V?
V or Verily is fine. I go by V a lot because it's easier. In the church, people get Verily, they understand it.
Uh-huh.
I was
But
going to say,
outside the church, I get Beverly, Merrily, Valerie. So
how can we describe ourselves as Mormon without saying that we're Mormon? She
I
figured
totally
it out.
know what Verily is. Okay. Yes.
yeah,
It's not like Verily is, it's not unique to the Book of Mormon, right? It's
No.
throughout. Yeah. It's in the Bible a lot.
No, but it's in
so-
the Bible. It's in old writings.
yeah,
Well, can
No.
we talk about your siblings' names as well, or no?
yeah, that's fine. So I have an older brother. His name is Nephi, which is a Book of Mormon name. When he was 17, he went into the Navy. So he got tired of explaining Nephi to everyone. So now he goes by Ben, which is his middle name, and has for like 20 years.
Sure.
And I have
Sensible.
2 younger sisters. One is Hosanna and Steve's face. And then Charity's the last one. So she really lucked out. Yeah.
That's a
Charity's
great
not bad.
name. Charity's
Yeah.
a great name.
Charity is a great stripper name.
No, it's not. Well, maybe
Sweet
it is.
Charity.
Maybe it is. I've noticed that, Tony, as I've gone back and watched, some of these, that my facial expressions, I can never play poker. Like I don't
Bobby
realize even that
either.
I'm doing it. But apparently they're pretty. Now I'm not sure if other people are seeing them because typically
The way we have it set up is whoever's speaking, that's who pops up on the video.
right.
So yeah,
Mhm.
I have yet to figure out. I want to figure out how to record everybody all at once and then edit it, to make sure everyone gets to see.
Oh,
the
so like they
directions.
do on like Big Brother shows and stuff like that.
Right. So the reel I sent out, that was the first reel I've ever done on Facebook. I loved it
That was
because
good.
I caught Andy's spit take. It was just so good.
Okay, well, Verily, I have to tell you that, I'm a licensed therapist. I've done a lot of interviews with a lot of people over the years, and very seldom at this point am I excited to find out what comes next.
Oh yeah.
And you had a story that I thought was very interesting. So
Can I pause for just a moment?
sure, of course.
I just want to give out a bit of a warning. I know V, that you understand and you know this warning, but sometimes there's backlash, right? Talking about our backstory. And so you're comfortable, like, where is your comfort level about talking about your backstory?
I'm pretty much an open book. Like I feel comfortable talking about it. Um, I won't use names,
Sure.
just because of, I want to keep the anonymity of my exes and things. But yeah, I'm fine telling the story.
Okay.
Well, and I actually, not Tony, I appreciate that you said that, because we should warn people who are listening that, I mean, it's not an R-rated story by any means, but there will be a couple things that might come up that are pretty, that somebody could be triggered by.
Sure.
Yeah.
And so, like I said, if a listener is somebody who, because the thing about being triggered is that you don't really have any control over it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, just be leery of that going in, if you're listening. But again, I thought the story was very, I didn't think that there was much in the story that would be upsetting to people, as much as, holy smoke, this is a really crazy story. How did this
unique.
woman,
Yeah.
not go all Britney Spears on us, and
No, cut my hair.
so
She's-
anyway, so if you're, you could start where you want to. Do you want to start about your first husband, a little bit about that?
Yeah.
Oh,
So
let's start further back. Where'd you grow up? Where are you from?
So I'm originally from Los Angeles, and my family is all from California. I grew up primarily in Orem, Utah. So from the time I was very young until I was about 17, I lived in Orem, Utah. Then we moved back to California to take care of my grandpa. I lived there for about 3 years, went to school, everything like that. Eventually went on a mission, all that kind of stuff, took a break from school, went back to BYU, finished at BYU. And then I decided to go to law school. It was a long story of how I got there, but I decided to go to law school. Originally, I wanted to be a therapist like Steve. Found out
Big
that wasn't
mistake.
really for me.
You made the greatest choice ever. You way better than Steve.
Well, better. And I think your income probably, yeah.
Oh, well, you'd be surprised. But
Really quickly though, if your name is Nephi and you're in Orem, Utah, do you get picked on in school for that?
oh yeah. Like,
Yes. Okay, I would think so.
do you know the primary song Nephi's Courage?
I do.
Like relentless. Like every primary, like all the kids pointing at Nephi. Just,
Oh, that poor kid.
yeah. And then like every time the scriptures, had my name in it, the kids were like, Verily,
Yes.
So yeah, it was fun growing up with that. I was like, thanks, mom and dad. Appreciate you.
Yeah. I've gotten in some trouble with naming my kids weird names.
Oh yeah.
They are weird names.
Weird names.
Yeah, I chose very traditional names for my kids when I had kids. Their names are Ruby and Camilla.
That's good.
Like
Those
easy
are
to
good
say,
names.
easy to spell.
I will say,
Yeah.
like both of you seem to be you already, both you and Steve already set out to want to help people. That was,
Yes.
seemed like was that a motivation then?
Yes, that was definitely a motivation for me. I wanted to be a therapist to help people. The reason why I chose not to do it was because I worked at this boarding school for troubled youth while I was at BYU, and they all had
boarding school?
therapists. Yeah, it was a boarding school
For
like-
troubled youth.
Yeah, it was
I thought they just took them out in the desert there.
sometimes they do. We'd get them after they'd been in the desert.
Wow.
They come to us after that. So I worked there for like 3 years, and all the kids had therapists and everything, but they knew how to game the system. They knew how to work therapy so that they knew how to manipulate, basically. And so I was like, well, you can be the best therapist in the world and never help anyone, because they have to want to change.
That's true.
They have to want the help. And I didn't like that. I'd much rather, you know, smack the law on them and make them do what I say.
So troubled youth in Utah, are we talking about kids that just don't seem interested in a mission?
No, most
No,
of these
not at
kids were
all.
not
That
from
was a
Utah.
joke.
Oh, I was gonna say, wow, no, Tony. Yeah.
No, Utah has a surprising number of these like
You know,
treatment facility schools.
I try jokes, they fail. I have to keep tuning them up. I'm going to keep
Oh,
trying.
Tony, Charlotte says she got your joke. That is amazing.
That's good.
So anyway, long story short, I decided to go to law school. I was accepted to this university in Kansas. It's called Washburn University. And they had a January start program, which is unusual.
Go Ducks.
No, go Bods. See,
Yeah, they're the Ichabods.
the Ichabods.
Oh, Steve, you had to have Googled that.
No, he said his dad worked there.
My dad worked there.
Oh, that's right.
My
Like
dad worked
Ichabod Crane.
No, like the mascot is the founder of the school, Ichabod
Oh,
Washburn.
I wanted it to be Ichabod Crane.
No, my
It's
dad
kinda like
taught there
Ichabod
for,
Crane.
I'm going to say 3 years.
Yeah, he's like a guy. The Ichabod is like a guy with a top
So
hat and tails.
Their mascot was the guy that founded the school.
Yep.
Yeah, yeah. He's like Mr. Peanut, only not a peanut.
So BYU should be the Youngs or something.
Yeah,
Go Youngs.
Brigham Young, like everyone wears their beards to football games or something. It'd be awesome. So
That's
yeah,
interesting to me.
the Ichabods.
Okay.
And so I went to Washburn, and I met my first husband at church there in Kansas. Not at law school. He wasn't in law school. But he had grown up there in Kansas.
So like at
And,
the local ward is where you met him.
yeah, we were in a student ward. So if you were in school at all, married or single, as long as you didn't have kids old enough to go to nursery, you went to this ward
And so that's Topeka, right? That's where you were living?
in
Okay.
Topeka.
Topeka.
Topeka. Yeah.
I love that. I just like saying it.
Yeah, it means like good place to grow corn or something like that in one of the native languages there. So
Yeah.
I bet
know,
it's
who
true.
knows? Or potatoes, maybe. I don't know.
So I've been to Topeka once. I don't know why this is a lasting memory, but it seemed like a lot of people there walking around were very exotic looking. Like they seem like,
You mean black? Is that what you mean, Tony? That's not okay.
I don't know how else to say it. They just
That's
all look like
offensive.
mixed race. They all looked, like maybe they're mixed, they're really beautiful people there.
Really?
One time
I don't remember that at all.
one time I was talking to a girl and her name was very unusual. And I said, your name is very exotic. Well, she was African-American and I did not realize at the time, but that's a trigger for a lot of African-American women who get told they're exotic.
Thing to say.
Well, it ended up being like this horribly racist thing to say. And I immediately started apologizing. So anyway, that was
okay.
story.
Everyone there looked interesting to me.
Okay, so we're going to church in Topeka.
Yeah, so I met my first husband there. Through a long process, we started dating. At first, when I first met him, I was not like interested at all. I was
So the
like,
long process was just him begging a lot.
Well, he was too shy to beg. It was like
Ain't too
I don't
proud to
know, him,
beg.
like too proud to beg. But no. Anyway, we started dating. And we didn't date long. I think we started dating in November-ish. We got married in March of the next year. So yeah. And then we were married for 6 years. This was when I was about halfway through law school. We got married. He worked at Walmart when we met. So of course, I was in law school. He worked at Walmart. It made sense. And like, then he got a job at a bread company for a while. And then he went back to Walmart. But anyway, when I graduated from law school, we decided that he was going to go to school. So we moved to Denver, and he went to film school in Denver. His ambition was to be a film editor. And so we went to this film school. We were living with his ex-step grandparents.
Wow.
In
Okay.
their unfinished basement. And it was, some of the darkest times of my life, I'd say. It was just really hard. Denver was hard.
Did they
for
just
me.
not have any lights down there?
They didn't. It was dark, literally and figuratively.
Well, and I think that when you're early on in a marriage, like those
geez.
kind of things can be the thing that like you look back on and go, oh man, look what we endured together. But that's only if the marriage goes well.
Yeah. Well, he kind of convinced me that he had never done well going to school and working at the same time. And I was trying to give him the benefit of the doubt. I was like, okay. I was like, I worked during school. I worked 2 jobs when I was at BYU. And, when I was in law school, I worked as well, which, not a lot of law students work during school. So I was kind of like, well, I work during school, but not everyone. I was like, well, maybe not everyone can do that. I'll give him the benefit of the doubt. So I decided to support him while he was in school. And I was struggling to pass the bar. I took the bar twice in Colorado and failed.
Can I ask a question about the bar?
Yeah.
I've always been curious, what are they asking you? What are the questions? Are they multiple choice? What are they, just all case laws? You just have to.
Well, it's kind of a long question, but there's something called the UBE. It's a unified bar exam. That's what most states have adopted now. At the time, that wasn't the case. So most states had individual, like state law that they would ask, and all your regular kind of like core courses from law school. So in law school, like the first year that you're in law school, there's a bunch of core things that you have to learn, like contracts, secured transactions, civil procedure, criminal law, like all of these basic classes. And so all of those things are on the bar. So basically you study for 3 years and then you take this comprehensive test at the end, and it's several days long. Like the bar
if it's
is
got state law though, and you studied in Kansas and you're taking the test in Denver. I mean, was that part of the issue?
That was part of the issue. Also, just the first time I took it, I don't think I understood the magnitude of the test.
Oh,
Like,
sure.
It's a lot more brutal than people think. The first day is all essay. So
Kim Kardashian passed the bar, so
no, she passed the baby bar.
No,
It's
she was
not
to say
the
she did
same.
not pass the bar. That's false.
Like-
Yeah.
geez, sorry. False.
Are you just we know what's going on with the Kardashians. That's what I'm saying.
Oh, yeah. Anyway, like the first day of the bar exam is all essay. It's like 6. You have to write 6 essays. So give you essay questions. Hi, Bobby. And then they have these test questions where they give you kind of like a problem to solve. They give you a set of facts and they give you some fake laws. And then you have to write like a memo or a letter or something to a client. So you
Oh,
have 2 of those. So you do have 6 essays and then you have 2 of these longer, like apply the law kind of written things. And then the second
That's
day
legit.
usually is all multiple choice. It's like 200 questions, multiple choice. But it's, they're long enough that it goes a whole day.
so what did you
testing.
do to become to pass? What did you start working on?
I dumped most law students will get a bar study course and they cost a lot of money, like $3,000.
Ooh.
And so I had paid for this bar study course and all this stuff. And that's what I was studying from. And it did not help me. So the third time I took the bar, I took it in New Mexico because we were moving down here because my ex wanted to be in the film industry, and New Mexico has a big film industry.
Booming. It's just
Who knew?
booming there.
I
Yeah.
had no idea.
Breaking
it really
Bad.
does. Like Like Netflix has a huge studio here.
Well, it's the climate, right? It's probably similar.
Yeah, and just the rock formations and
Yeah,
stuff. Like,
desert.
yeah, it's good for like a lot of,
So let me ask a
alien
question for Bobby. How many dead bodies have you seen?
Me? Well, I mean, I had one when I was in Palmer, but I was actually going to
No.
say like New Mexico is actually a great place to also hide a body too. I've never done it, but I heard.
But it's on your
So,
bucket list.
I am so there. Yes, baby.
So, so you took the bar. So what did work then? Go into that.
Yeah, so I studied on my own. Like I just bought books and studied on my own, and that's how I passed in the end. So yeah, and I think by then I had kind of gotten a feel for the test. I was no longer as nervous to take it and anxious and things like that. So I think that helped too.
Sure.
So I passed the bar in New Mexico when I was pregnant with my daughter. I struggled with infertility in my first marriage, and it took me almost 4 years to get pregnant with my first child. So I was pregnant with my daughter when I passed the bar. And then we moved down to New Mexico. My ex graduated from school, and
Pay attention to the air quotes, people.
he was like, I graduated.
Wait, I want to know what that means. What does it mean he
Oh,
graduated?
you didn't read all the things?
She
You'll
didn't
find out.
study. She didn't
Yeah,
study.
I'm like Tony. I don't know how to read.
So anyway, we moved down to New Mexico. We moved down. I had my daughter in Denver by C-section. The day after I got out of the hospital, we moved to New Mexico. Like
Wow.
I started my job here at the DA's office, not the one that I work at now, but the other one, when I was like 2 weeks after I had my daughter.
Okay.
So
Jeez Louise.
yeah, my ex didn't work. We were married 6 years. He didn't work 5 of those years. So he didn't work while he was in film school. And then after I had my daughter, we decided he was going to stay home with her because, I had passed the bar and I had a job lined up and everything. So he was going to stay home. So we were doing the stay-at-home dad thing, living in Albuquerque. It was frustrating because I would come home and he would not have moved from the couch. My daughter would be like covered in food and like not cleaned or anything. He hadn't taken her outside all day. And then eventually she started, she wasn't talking when she should be. And my niece was like a few months older, and she was just like talking up a storm. And I was like, why isn't Ruby talking? And so I was very concerned about all of that. And my ex just seemed really depressed and everything. So we started going to counseling. And the counselor we had was this girl who, she looked like she was 12, but she must have been like 26 or whatever, gone through school. And I doubt she was ever married. But she basically told me that I had too high of expectations of my husband.
I have literally never told a wife that.
My expectations of him were too high, and that I needed to lower my expectations of him because I wanted him to clean one thing a day, get
Awful.
out some meat so that I could cook dinner when I got home from work, make sure my daughter was clean, fed, take her outside. These were my expectations,
Oh, so was she one of those therapists?
Well, what do you mean? Tell me what you mean by those therapists.
I was just doing the air quote, like maybe she really
okay, never
wasn't one.
Well, I think V had said that she probably is never married, so it's difficult. I think I would struggle too to get marriage advice from a therapist who's never been married.
Yeah, and I didn't know that for sure, but I was pretty sure since she was so young and she didn't have a ring or anything like that. And I was kind of like, do you really know what you're saying? But anyway, so I was trying to, temper my very high expectations. And we bought a house. We moved to Rio Rancho, which is a suburb of Albuquerque.
Okay.
So we moved up there. I got a different job. I started working for a private firm and doing foreclosures, working for the banks, which is a special kind of soul sucking
Big
work.
Gonna
money.
say that's the opposite of helping people.
Yeah, it was like brutal. Like I hated it. Just because I got into a lot of help people, and I loved working at the DA's office, loved it so much, but I didn't make enough money to live. So I was like, I told my boss, I was like, this job has become a luxury I can no longer afford.
Oh yeah.
So I had to go. But a couple of months after I left the DA's office and was working for our private firm, one day I was woken up at 6 o'clock in the morning by just banging on the front door. Bang, 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 bang. Police, police, open the door. I was like, oh my gosh, what is going on? So my ex goes to the front door, goes and opens the door. About 40 cops rush in and just, fill my house with cops. And I am like in my underwear, because I was sleeping. So I'm like in my underwear, and they point a gun at me, tell me to put my hands up, take me outside in the front yard in my underwear. And like in front of my neighbors.
No one offers you a jacket. No one offers you a blanket.
No, I was standing outside in my underwear for a good 15 minutes or so.
They never arrested you, right? I mean, they knew it was the husband.
No, they never arrested me.
Okay, so that's weird that they weren't nice then.
Yeah. Well, they didn't know like what I knew or,
right,
where my allegiance was or anything like that. So I was so confused. I had no idea what was going on. They're taking us outside, and for a split second, I'm able to make eye contact with my ex, and he just mouths the words, "I'm sorry." And I was like, oh my gosh, he knows exactly why they're here.
Wait, was there a dead body in the basement?
There was no basement because it's New Mexico, but
is it really better?
Oh, that's right. It would be in the desert. It's New Mexico.
But no dead bodies. But come to find out, the police have been watching my ex for a long time on the dark web, where he was going on and obtaining child pornography. And he had a very significant collection of child pornography, and he was also distributing the child pornography on the dark web as well. And so he confessed, like he told them everything. He told them I knew nothing about it. We had a computer that we shared, but it had different logins, like one for him, one for me. So I had no idea. And I'm very like technology, like not.
All right, take notes, everybody. Have your own profile on your computer.
Very important.
Or stay single.
or that. Yes. So yeah, then they actually did interrogate me. So they took me in the squad car after they brought me some clothes finally.
What do you know? Tell us what
like,
you know.
They tried to get me to sign something that said that I was waiving my, Fifth Amendment right to incrimination.
Oh, you knew better, I'm sure.
I was like, if I'm not being accused of anything, why do I need to sign this? And they were just, oh, it's just procedure. Da, 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 da. I'm like, no, I'm not gonna do that. Like, So anyway, they did interrogate me, but they just wanted to know like if I knew or not, which I had no idea. And
I don't know if
they knew it wasn't me because they had been watching him, and he only logged on while I was at work. They knew all about us. They knew I was an attorney. They knew I had worked for the district attorney's office. They knew we had a daughter. They brought a babysitter for my daughter for the raid. So I was appreciative of that because she wasn't like freaked out. They were actually like taking care of her and stuff. So that was good.
So here's a guy. He's not working outside the home. He's not working inside the home, but he's on the internet looking at terrible things.
Yeah.
We need his address. It's this body lice farm thing that we have going on. So we're going to need his address. Just feel free to go ahead and put it in the group chat.
Okay, gotcha. So they didn't actually arrest him right then. They like gathered up a bunch of stuff and then they left for a little while. And then I was like, didn't know what to do. I called a friend of mine, asked her to come get me. And I left with my daughter. They came back and arrested him later that day. And took him to jail. He called me from jail and asked me if I was going to bail him out. I was like, are you kidding me? I was like, I don't even know where to put you. Like, you can't stay in my house. Like,
wrong number.
So
yeah,
Oh my gosh.
yeah. I tell my kids now, they're 8 and 4. I tell them, I'm like, I don't pay bail. I don't pay bail. You get arrested, you stand in there.
Amen. That's good policy.
Yeah. So anyway, he sat in there for about 10 days until he had his first appearance and everything. And then he was released. While he was in there, I had no idea what to do with him. So I was able to actually find him a group home to go to because I felt bad. I didn't want him living in his car. Because I still loved him, you know, like
You should have just took the car.
You can't just shut that stuff off, you know. You can't.
I was gonna say it's really hard. I mean,
yeah.
I mean,
Bobby has no mercy.
well, Bobby's
for
probably
that,
learned.
No mercy for that. I'm sorry. Not
I mean,
only
not-
would I have taken the car, but I would have left and
Well, his car was a stick, and unfortunately, I don't know how to drive stick.
Oh,
So,
well, there you go.
you
I
know.
would have put a free sign on it.
Then he'd be hanging out outside my house. It's like a puppy I needed to get rid of.
So was this like group home, like a special home for pedophiles or something?
It was a home for guys that were like either in drug rehab or, you know, other kinds of like probation and things like that. I knew the sheriff's deputy that he had retired and he had started it. I knew him from my time at the DA's office. And so he was able to get my ex into that home. But it wasn't especially for pedophiles.
I'm going to ask a fast forward question. Just curious, like he's gone to jail, right?
Should be in prison.
So he did that
initial.
He did that initial like 10 days. And then eventually when he pled, he had one probation violation where he did about 6 weeks. And that is all the jail time.
That does not surprise me.
Okay. Is he in the desert somewhere dead? Is this where we're getting to?
No, I bet he's
to that point.
No, he is alive and well in Kansas.
Does
And
he have
how
to
long
register?
ago did this happen?
He does.
Of course.
This happened in
so.
2016. He does have to register as a
kidding
sex offender for the rest of his life.
Well, I was going to ask the typical question. Isn't there some kind of prison punishment for guys like him?
So yes, it's kind of a weird thing. And I've looked a lot into it. In New Mexico, these types of cases can go 3 ways. They can go with the state district attorney's office. They can go to the attorney general's office, or they can be picked up by the feds and go to the U.S. attorney's office.
Wow.
The U.S. attorney's office can get significant jail time. So like Jared Fogle from Subway and, you know, that kid from 19 Kids and Counting and all those guys, they were prosecuted by the feds. And they got like 20 years.
High profile. Yeah.
Yeah. So the feds
Why
took
was
those
there no
cases.
option of throwing him on the leprosy island?
Right? That should have
I
been
think I
written in
just
the
solved
statute.
half the world problems.
Yeah, I need to call my state legislator and have
So
him change the law.
Steve and I were asking this question and we've kind of stepped away from it a little bit, but I'm imagining that this is probably one of your lowest points in your life.
Yeah, my world
And
was
you had to dig yourself out of it.
destroyed. Like I went from one day thinking that I was married in the temple, like things were fine. My husband was just a little depressed, to the next day, like my whole life being blown up by an A-bomb, basically. It was so devastating.
Looking back at it, did you see other any other clues? Obviously,
Well,
I'm not
yes.
blaming you at all, but yeah, I'm just curious. Was there anything else that stood out now?
So looking back, our sex life made a lot more sense.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah.
Because from the very beginning of when we got married, and we were both virgins when we got married. We were the Mormon virgins. And from the very beginning, and he was like 25 and I was almost 27. He always struggled with ED.
Well, that's a
Always.
bad sign, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's way too young to be struggling with that.
Yeah, like always. And he didn't want to go to the doctor to like get help with it.
Bobby,
Or
should we
anything like
explain
that.
what that is?
No, I actually know what that is.
Do you have
Okay, so-
experience?
Yes. I
Oh, I'm
think my
sorry.
ex-husband was gay. And so I think he is. And I think he had that same problem. But
We
that's a
should
whole
clarify.
other podcast.
We should clarify which ex-husband that is.
No, not the first one, not the one that I still talk to. My rebound marriage.
Yes,
Yeah. I had a rebound marriage too. So
Everybody does.
I had a rebound marriage.
gotta do it. Steve, you're the
mean-
only odd man out.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Not living until you have one.
But if something happens to Charlotte, I'm jumping into matrimony.
Right
Rebound.
to it.
So yeah, our sex life definitely was a tip off. The cops even asked me about our sex life. They
That's
asked
so
me when
weird.
the last time we had sex was, and I knew the exact date because we were trying to get pregnant again. And so I had been calendaring because, I'd had such a hard time getting pregnant the first time. And so I had calendared our sex, and we were having sex like once a month.
Oh,
Like,
as newlyweds?
this was when he was arrested. When we
Oh,
were
uh-oh.
newlyweds, it was about once a week, but it was still
Okay, so this
Not
should just be a
typical.
clue for anybody. If your male partner doesn't have interest in you, that should be a warning sign of something bad. Maybe
Yeah.
he's gay, maybe he's into children,
yeah, something's up.
something's wrong.
Yeah, and I blame myself for the longest time. I always thought it was me somehow. Like I wasn't, good enough at it. I wasn't alluring enough or whatever. And so it was hard on me to have that kind of sex life. And he just let me believe it. And we had talked about pornography before we got married. I asked him if he had a problem with it, and he said, I used to, but I
used
don't
to.
now.
Oh, every guy used to. All of them.
Yeah. And I was like, well, if you have a problem again, let me know. We can go to therapy. We can, I'll be there for you, all this kind of stuff. And then, yeah, but it was a problem our whole marriage, apparently. So anyway, now when he was first arrested, I started getting the mail. And that's when I found out about his secret credit cards,
Oh my
the credit cards in
Oh
my
my
name
goodness.
run up, the bank account that he had to pay all these secret credit cards out of. He had always, I tried to give him, oh, you pay the bills since you stay home, you pay the bills and all that, that will be part of your responsibility.
That's very
Well-
sexist of you. Very, very
Oh.
sexist.
I know. But he didn't tell me, but he wasn't paying the bills. So we had a bunch of bills that were way behind. We had stuff in collections. There were cards in my name I thought were paid off that were in collections, just crazy stuff. And then I found out, he told me actually that he hadn't actually graduated from film school, that he didn't pass all of his classes. And when we moved to New Mexico, he just told me that he had graduated. He said he didn't want to walk in his graduation. And then when I started asking him, hey, where's your diploma? Why haven't they sent you your diploma yet? I'm going to call them. I'm going to do this and that. He went to Office Depot or whatever, bought some fancy paper, jumped on Photoshop, made a diploma, printed it off.
I gotta
On
say,
Facebook.
it's really ingenious.
Well, you do. Okay. And Verily, you've seen this in the DA's office. You've seen this. If these guys would spend as much effort just working at 7-Eleven as
Right.
they do with all the nonsense to get away with stuff, they'd be employee of the year.
Exactly. He
Mm.
put in so much effort to get away with stuff. It was crazy to me. So anyway, yeah, so he showed me this diploma and it looked legit. So I was like, oh, okay, good. So he told me that was fake. He told me, I found out he had a secret Xbox I didn't know about. He had spent money on all these different things. Anyway, so all the lies came tumbling out. And so I filed for divorce while he was in jail, partially because he needed a public defender, and I made too much money for him to get a public defender.
Wow.
And I was like, I'm not going to pay for his criminal lawyer because I might need that money for a divorce lawyer. So I filed for divorce so he could get a public defender. And like, he wrote me an 8-page letter.
This is the craziest part. People pay attention.
He wrote me an 8-page letter that was like, the whole first part was like, I want you to pray right now in your heart and ask the Lord to soften your heart and tell you these things, blah, blah, blah. And then he said that, God didn't want us to get divorced, that that he had seen in a vision that we were supposed to have more kids, and that these kids were in the pre-existence crying and praying and begging and hoping that their mother would have a change of heart, and that I wouldn't.
This is the greatest manipulation ever.
Because they just had to go to a pedophile father. They wanted it so bad.
That's why they were crying. Please don't have
Please
me.
don't send me.
Okay, so Verily, that is
Looks like her video froze.
we're
Oh,
fine.
there she is.
Verily,
my God.
that my wife is behind me, really reacting to the story you're telling. I just think that
Have you ever told your story before? Oh, her video froze again.
that's New Mexico.
Yeah, it's all that meth out there. I think it's freezing up the lines.
I mean, it's good math.
Have you
the
ever
best.
told your story before?
Can you see me and like hear me and
Yes, you're
stuff?
fine.
Oh, okay. Not like this, like not openly, I guess. I've told it to friends and things like that, but
Sure.
Well,
we really do appreciate your vulnerability. I know it's tough. And of course it gets better, right? Of course it gets better. You have to be able to get better. I'm sorry.
life gets better. But anyway, yeah, I divorced my first husband, married my second husband, rebound, met him on Match. He was not a member of my faith. He actually grew up Jehovah's Witness. He wasn't practicing at the time we were married, but he is practicing again now. And he, like, to his credit, I must say that he is a really good dad, or he tries really hard. And like, we have a daughter together. We didn't date long again. We dated for, I think, from October, and we got married in January. So even shorter than the first time, I think. Because at the time it just felt like happiness again. And I had been in such a dark place that I was trying to hang on to any like piece of happiness I could find. And he came along, and that felt like happiness at the time. And he was good with my daughter. And I had the very high bar, as Steve pointed out, that he had a job and he liked adult women.
Wow.
Well, wow. It's hard for people to understand what it's like. How long were you with your first husband?
We were married for 6 years, and we dated before that for probably like 4
Even
or 5
though it
years.
was rough, I mean, it's still an extended amount of time. And when it's that rough, and it's that rough of an exit, you just want to restart, and you just want to be in that relationship again. It's I understand it. I do understand it. I even would speak on Bobby's behalf. She understands. I don't know. Steve understands just being a therapist, but it is.
Well, I understand just being married. If I was suddenly alone, that would be.
It's devastating. It is hard. It is
It's
really
hard. And I was a single mom. That was the first time I was a single mom. Oh, like how I'd mentioned before, how my daughter was kind of delayed with her speech. As soon as he was arrested, I took her to be evaluated by family services and stuff. And they said she was speech delayed, but they felt it was circumstantial. So as soon as she was put in daycare, her vocabulary just exploded.
So she wasn't even really being talked to. by
Yeah,
him, like during the day.
exactly.
Yeah.
She was like low level neglect,
Mhm.
basically.
Does
And
he
so
have
that-
anything to do with her now or no?
So in our divorce, he was given supervised visits. So for a long time, we did these supervised visits at a therapist's office with the therapist there. Then when he pled in his case, because he pled to one of the charges, part of his probation was that he was to have no contact with her. So he was on probation for 3 years, which is not a long time, but 3 years. He was convicted of a third-degree felony. They actually didn't follow the sentencing guidelines correctly, but that's a whole soapbox that I won't get on. But anyway, so he didn't talk to her for 3 years. And then I thought as soon as he got off probation that he would be calling like immediately, because this is his only child. Like I thought he'd be all over that, but he didn't call. Like, days and days went by. And so he talks to her now occasionally. It's like once or twice a month he'll call or she'll call him. And most of the time it's she wants to talk to him or she's talking to her grandma, and the grandma will kind of like bring him the phone kind of thing. And he said it's because he feels embarrassed calling me, like calling my phone, because my daughter doesn't have her own phone. But I'm like, don't blame me. If you want to have a relationship with your child,
Right.
you
Well,
have a relationship with them.
And Verily, I had already asked you this before, but I just want our viewers to know that your daughter was safe. She was never violated or hurt or.
To my knowledge, she was never touched or hurt by him at all. He denies it adamantly. I took her to a therapist to be evaluated for any like sexually acting out behavior or things like that. And they told me that she showed no signs of being molested. So
Sure.
as far as I know, she wasn't. I think it's possible she could have seen some of the pornography he was watching, and I don't know like how that might have affected her. But yeah, the divorce, even though she was really young, she wasn't even 2 when this happened, it has affected her significantly. Like she has a separation anxiety disorder and things like that, because she lost her primary caregiver with no explanation, just one day gone, out of the blue. And so she's very clingy on me sometimes, and doesn't like it when I leave the house at night, things like that.
Yeah, it can be tough.
Yeah.
Holy cow.
But yeah, so yeah, to answer your question, he has a little bit to do with her. She's getting baptized next weekend and he's coming out for that. But that will be the second time he's seen her since he's been off probation.
Who's going to baptize her?
Our bishop is.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Tony, can we pause this for a second?
Yeah, absolutely. Let's take a pause here. Hold on. Let me figure this out. All right. Steve's going to explain kind of the plans, what we're going to do next.
Okay. So we got some, again, I think that story is really interesting. And the part about,
Unique.
for all of its craziness, the part with him making his own diploma. when you told me about that, I just, anyway, but we're going to package that as kind of part 1. And so this will be part 2, because Verily also has a really interesting job. And we want to talk a little bit about that. Unfortunately, Bobby had to take off. So she's not going to be with us at this point. I keep saying, I apologize. But Verily, so tell us a little bit about what you're currently doing.
Okay. I'm an assistant district attorney.
Let me interrupt. I actually think I paused the recording earlier. I think I need to stop it to actually make it 2. So let me stop it and we'll start back up.
Okay, that sounds fine.
End of part 1. Bye, everybody.
End of part 1.